The first explosion hit 30 meters to Sam Ingle's left, sending a plume of purple dust high into the alien atmosphere. He ducked behind a boulder, clutching his standard-issue pulse rifle to his chest. The second explosion was closer, making the ground shake beneath his boots. "Damn it," Sam muttered, checking his oxygen levels. 63%, enough to make it back to the extraction point if he moved quickly and didn't exert himself. The problem was the 4 Vraxian soldiers between him and safety. Sam had been separated from his squad during what was supposed to be a routine reconnaissance mission on Vraxia 9. Intelligence had indicated minimal hostile presence in this sector. Intelligence, as usual, had been wrong. He peered around the boulder. Through swirling purple dust, he could make out the silhouettes of the Vraxian soldiers. They stood nearly 7 feet tall, their elongated bodies covered in reflective armor that shimmered in the dim light of the planet's twin suns. Each carried what humans had nicknamed shatter rifles, weapons that fired crystalline projectiles capable of piercing standard military armor. "Human detected," a mechanical voice translated from the harsh, clicking language of the Vraxians. "Surrender or be terminated." Sam weighed his options. His pulse rifle was low on charge and he only had 1 stun grenade left. The extraction shuttle was scheduled to depart in 20 minutes with or without him. "I'm coming out," Sam called, making a split-second decision. "Don't shoot." He emerged slowly, rifle pointed downward, free hand raised. The Vraxians surrounded him, their 4 eyes glowing with bioluminescent intensity. The tallest of the aliens stepped forward, its translucent outer mandibles quivering. "Disarm," it ordered through its translation device. Sam carefully set his rifle down. The alien kicked it away and motioned for Sam to remove his combat belt, which contained his remaining grenade and survival kit. As Sam unbuckled his belt, the alien nearest to him made a strange sound, a series of clicks, and whirs that the translation device interpreted as laughter. "Look at its limbs," the alien said, pointing at Sam's hands. "So fragile and inefficient." The other Vraxians joined in what Sam now recognized as mockery. Their own upper limbs ended in 3-fingered manipulators with double-jointed digits and reinforced exoskeletal plating. "How do they build anything with such weak appendages?" another one asked, reaching forward to prod at Sam's gloved hand. Sam remained silent, knowing that showing anger would only make his situation worse. The Vraxians weren't known for their mercy toward prisoners. "Bind it," the leader ordered, and one of the soldiers produced a set of metallic restraints. As the alien approached, Sam noticed something about the weapon. It carried a manufacturing defect he'd been briefed on during his pre-mission training. The shatter rifles produced by the Vraxians occasionally had a weak point where the barrel connected to the firing chamber, especially in the field-issued models. The alien thrust the restraints toward him. "Extend your pathetic graspers, human." Something snapped inside Sam. Maybe it was the mockery, or the realization that he was unlikely to make it to the extraction point as a prisoner. Whatever the reason, he made his move. Instead of taking the restraints, Sam lunged forward, grabbing the barrel of the alien's shatter rifle with both hands. The Vraxian hissed in surprise, trying to pull back, but Sam had already braced himself, twisting with all his strength. There was a loud crack as the weapon split at its weakest point, breaking into 2 pieces. The crystalline ammunition inside scattered, some of the shards embedding themselves in the alien's armor. For a moment, everything was still. The Vraxians stared at their comrade's broken weapon, then at Sam's hands, their bioluminescent eyes wide with what Sam interpreted as shock. Sam didn't wait for them to recover. He swung the broken barrel like a club, catching the nearest Vraxian across its head. The alien staggered back, green fluid leaking from a crack in its carapace. The leader raised its weapon, but Sam was already moving, ducking low and driving his shoulder into the alien's midsection. They went down together, crashing onto the purple dust. Sam felt a sharp pain as one of the alien's armored limbs caught him across the ribs, but adrenaline kept him fighting. He wrestled the shatter rifle from the leader's grasp and rolled away, firing wildly at the other 2 Vraxians. One went down, crystalline shards protruding from its chest. The other returned fire, forcing Sam to scramble behind a rock formation. Pain flared in his side where the alien had struck him. Sam pressed his hand against his ribs and felt wetness blood seeping through his combat suit. A glancing hit from a crystal shard had penetrated his armor. The wound was serious but not immediately fatal. Sam checked his oxygen levels again. 51%. The fight had cost him precious air. He heard the Vraxians communicating, their clicks and whirs lost in translation at this distance. They were coordinating, trying to flank him. Sam knew he couldn't stay put. Taking a deep breath despite the pain, he pulled his last stun grenade from his discarded combat belt, which lay nearby. He primed it, counted to 2, and hurled it toward where he'd last seen the Vraxians. The flash was blinding even from behind cover. Sam heard the aliens shrieking in pain as their sensitive eyes absorbed the full brunt of the explosion. He vaulted over the rock, retrieving his pulse rifle in one fluid motion, and fired at the disoriented aliens. 2 more went down, leaving only the leader. The tall Vraxian was staggering, one arm raised to shield its eyes, the other reaching for a sidearm. Sam aimed carefully and fired his last pulse charge. The leader collapsed, its bioluminescent eyes dimming. Sam didn't have time to verify if they were dead or just unconscious. His side was burning, oxygen was running low, and he needed to move. He grabbed his combat belt, secured his rifle, and began jogging toward the extraction point, each step sending jolts of pain through his ribs. The landscape of Vraxia 9 was treacherous, jagged rock formations and shifting dust that could conceal deep crevices. Sam navigated carefully, constantly checking his positioning device. 10 minutes to extraction. His breathing was becoming labored, partly from the injury and partly from decreasing oxygen quality as his suit's filters struggled to process the alien atmosphere. Black spots danced at the edges of his vision. Sam stumbled, nearly falling as his boot caught on a rock. He steadied himself against a boulder, leaving a smear of blood on its surface. The wound was worse than he'd initially thought. Each breath sent sharp pain through his chest, suggesting at least one broken rib, possibly puncturing something important inside. Just keep moving, he told himself, pushing off from the boulder, one foot in front of the other. The extraction point came into view, a flat plateau where the shuttle could land safely. Sam checked his positioning device. 7 minutes until scheduled extraction. He could make it. Then he heard the distinctive whine of a Vraxian hover transport. Sam looked back to see a vehicle cresting a ridge, heading in his direction. Reinforcements. He forced himself to move faster, ignoring the protesting pain in his side. The plateau was 200 meters away now. The transport was gaining quickly. Sam's positioning device beeped an incoming transmission from the extraction shuttle. Ingle, this is Extraction Team Delta. We're reading multiple hostiles converging on your position. What's your status? Sam keyed his comm. Injured but mobile. Hostile transport in pursuit. Request immediate extraction. Copy that. We're 3 minutes out. Can you reach the designated landing zone? Affirmative, Sam replied, though he wasn't entirely confident. The transport behind him was closing fast. He reached the edge of the plateau and began the climb up its steep side. Each handhold was agony as his injured ribs shifted. Blood loss was making him dizzy, and his oxygen level had dropped to 29%. The Vraxian transport stopped at the base of the plateau. Sam heard the unmistakable sound of troops disembarking. Hurry, he whispered to himself, pulling his body up another meter. A crystal shard embedded itself in the rock next to his head. They were firing at him. Sam pressed himself against the cliff face, trying to present a smaller target. Another shard struck his leg, slicing through his combat suit and into the muscle beneath. Sam cried out, nearly losing his grip. He clung to the rock face, blood now flowing from 2 serious wounds. Delta to Ingle, we have visual on your position. Hang tight. Sam looked up to see the welcome sight of a human shuttle descending toward the plateau. Its defensive systems engaged immediately, laying down suppressive fire on the Vraxians below. With one final effort, Sam hauled himself onto the plateau just as the shuttle touched down. The loading ramp descended and 2 armored figures rushed out to assist him. "Man, you look terrible," one of them said, supporting Sam's weight as they helped him toward the shuttle. "You should see the other guys," Sam managed through gritted teeth. Inside the shuttle, medics immediately went to work, cutting away his combat suit to access his wounds. Sam winced as they applied pressure to his side. "Multiple lacerations, 2 broken ribs, punctured lung," one medic reported. "He's lost a lot of blood." The shuttle lifted off, banking sharply to avoid Vraxian fire. Sam felt a needle in his arm as a medic administered pain medication and a blood expander. "How'd you get away from a full Vraxian patrol?" the other soldier asked, securing himself in a seat nearby. Through the haze of pain and medication, Sam smiled faintly. "They made fun of my hands," he said, lifting his bloodied fingers, "so I broke their gun." The soldier looked at him with newfound respect. "Seriously, you broke a shatter rifle with your bare hands." "Found the weak point," Sam explained, his words slurring as the medication took effect. "They're not as tough as they look." The shuttle accelerated, breaking free of Vraxia 9 atmosphere. Sam felt the familiar sensation of artificial gravity engaging as they headed for the human battlecruiser in orbit. "Rest now," the medic told him, adjusting his Roman 4. "You're going to need surgery when we reach the Intrepid." Sam nodded, letting his eyes close. The last thing he remembered before losing consciousness was the medic saying, "I've never heard of anyone breaking a Vraxian weapon with their bare hands before. This guy's going to be a legend." He woke up in the medical bay of the HSS Intrepid, monitors beeping steadily around him. The sharp, antiseptic smell of a military hospital filled his nostrils, replacing the filtered air of his combat suit. "Welcome back to the land of the living, Sergeant Ingle," a voice said. Sam turned his head to see Dr. Olivia Jensen, the Intrepid's chief medical officer, checking his vitals on a tablet. "How long?" Sam asked, his voice raspy from disuse. 3 days, Dr. Jensen replied. "You had us worried for a while there. Punctured lung, significant blood loss, tissue damage from those crystal shards. We had to put you in an accelerated healing chamber for 48 hours. Sam tried to sit up, wincing at the dull ache in his side. "Easy," Dr. Jensen said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "The tissue is still knitting together. Another day of rest and you'll be cleared for light duty." "The mission?" Sam asked. "Debriefing can wait until you're stronger," she said, but Sam shook his head. "I need to know if we got what we came for," Dr. Jensen sighed. "Colonel Ryan will be by later to discuss it. For now, focus on recovery." But Sam didn't have to wait long. An hour later, Colonel Thomas Ryan entered the medical bay, his weathered face set in its usual stern expression. "Sergeant," he greeted, pulling up a chair beside Sam's bed. "Good to see you conscious." "Thank you, sir," Sam replied, attempting to sit straighter despite the pain. Ryan studied him for a moment. "Your squad recovered the data we needed before they were extracted. Intelligence is analyzing it now. Preliminary findings suggest the Vraxians are building something big on that moon, possibly a new class of warship." Sam nodded. That would explain the heavy security presence they'd encountered. "What happened out there, Sergeant? Your squad reported that you stayed behind to cover their retreat, but I want to hear your version." Sam recounted the events: the ambush, being separated from his squad, his capture by the Vraxian patrol, and his escape. When he reached the part about breaking the shatter rifle, Ryan's eyebrows rose. "You broke a Vraxian weapon with your bare hands." "Yes, sir." "There's a structural weakness where the barrel meets the firing chamber. Our intelligence briefings mentioned it, but I didn't realize how significant it was until I saw it up close." Ryan looked thoughtful. "That's valuable tactical information, Sergeant. If their weapons can be disabled that easily, it could change our approach to close-quarters combat with Vraxian forces." "They seemed pretty shocked about it, sir," Sam added. "I think they believe their technology is superior to ours in every way. Seeing a human break one of their weapons with his pathetic graspers, that's what they called my hands, it threw them off balance." Ryan actually smiled at that, a rare sight. "Psychological advantage. Good work, Sergeant." He stood. "Get some rest. Once you're cleared by medical, I want a full written report." "Yes, sir." After Ryan left, Sam laid back, staring at the ceiling of the medical bay. His hands still ached from the force he'd applied to the alien weapon, but there was a certain satisfaction in knowing he'd done something the Vraxians thought impossible. The next day, Sam was cleared for light duty. His ribs still hurt when he moved too quickly, and the wound in his leg required him to use a cane temporarily, but he was alive, which was more than could be said for the Vraxian patrol. Word of his escape had spread throughout the Intrepid. As he made his way to the mess hall for his first real meal in days, crew members he'd never spoken to before nodded respectfully or offered congratulations. "There he is," said Lieutenant Rebecca Chen as Sam entered the mess hall. She was sitting with the rest of his squad. All of them had made it back safely. The man who broke a shatter rifle with his bare hands. Sam smiled, slightly embarrassed by the attention. He sat down carefully at their table, setting his cane aside. It wasn't that impressive. "I just found a weak spot." "Bullshit," said Corporal Alex Mercer, the squad's heavy weapons specialist. "Those things are made of composite alloys stronger than our tank armor. I don't care if there was a weak spot, breaking one takes serious strength." "Or desperation," Sam added, picking up his fork. The food synthesized protein designed to aid tissue regeneration tasted better than it had any right to. "Whatever it was, you made history," said Staff Sergeant Danny Miller, their squad leader. "Intelligence is already updating the combat manuals based on your report." Sam shook his head. "Just doing what I had to do to get back alive." After lunch, Sam made his way to the ship's observation deck. He needed some quiet time to process everything that had happened. The deck was empty except for one other person, Dr. Jensen, staring out at the stars. "Should you be walking this far?" she asked as he approached, not turning around. "Probably not," Sam admitted, leaning on his cane, "but I needed to see something other than the inside of the medical bay." She nodded, understanding. "How's the pain?" "Manageable." Sam joined her at the viewport. The planet Vraxia 9 was visible in the distance, a swirl of purple and blue against the blackness of space. "They've increased my PT schedule. Should be back to full duty in 2 weeks." "That's optimistic," Dr. Jensen said, giving him a critical look. "Those crystalline shards did a lot of damage. Don't push yourself too hard." Sam flexed his hands, remembering the feel of the alien weapon breaking between them. "What do you know about Vraxian physiology, Doc?" She seemed surprised by the question. "Quite a bit, actually. We've had enough casualties on both sides to study their biology extensively." "Why?" They seemed fixated on my hands, called them weak and inefficient. Dr. Jensen nodded. "Vraxians evolved on a high-gravity world with a caustic atmosphere. Their exoskeletons and triple-jointed limbs are adaptations to those conditions. From their perspective, human anatomy probably does seem fragile." "But we're not," Sam said, more to himself than to her. "No," she agreed. "We're just adapted for different conditions. Humans have incredible endurance and fine motor control compared to Vraxians. Our hands can perform tasks their manipulators can't, like complex surgery or detailed mechanical work." Sam looked down at his hands again. They were scarred and calloused from years of military service, but they were also capable of great precision. "I guess they learned that the hard way." 2 weeks later, Sam was cleared for full duty. His ribs had healed, leaving only a slight tenderness, and he no longer needed the cane. He reported to Colonel Ryan's office for his new assignment. "Sergeant Ingle," Ryan greeted him. "Good to see you back on your feet. How are you feeling?" "Ready for duty, sir." Ryan nodded, activating a holographic display on his desk. "I'm assigning you to a special operations team. Your experience with Vraxian weapons has highlighted a tactical advantage we hadn't fully appreciated." The hologram showed schematics of various Vraxian weapons, with weak points highlighted in red. "Intelligence has compiled data on structural vulnerabilities in standard Vraxian equipment," Ryan continued. "We're forming a team to develop close-quarters combat techniques to exploit these weaknesses." Sam studied the schematics with interest. "So we're turning their technological arrogance against them." "Exactly," Ryan said with a nod. "The Vraxians believe their technology makes them superior. They've never considered that a lesser species might be able to physically overcome their weapons." "When do I start?" Sam asked. "Immediately. You'll be working with a team of combat specialists and engineers. Your first mission is in 3 days a raid on a Vraxian outpost where they're developing new weapon prototypes. We want to test these techniques in the field. Sam felt a surge of anticipation. After being mocked and nearly killed by the Vraxians, there was a certain satisfaction in knowing he would be helping to develop tactics that could turn the tide of the war. "I won't let you down, sir," he said, standing straighter. Ryan's expression grew serious. "This isn't about revenge, Sergeant. It's about finding an advantage in a war that's already cost too many lives. Keep that in mind." "Understood, sir." The Special Operations team consisted of 5 members, each selected for their unique skills. Besides Sam, there was Captain Evelyn Park, an infiltration specialist, Lieutenant James Wolfe, a combat engineer, Sergeant Tristan Gray, a sniper, and Dr. Rita Sharma, a xenobiologist specializing in Vraxian physiology. They gathered in a secure briefing room deep within the Intrepid. "Our target is a research facility on Vraxia's third moon," Captain Park explained, pointing to a holographic map. "Intelligence indicates they're testing prototype weapons. They're possibly improvements to address the structural weaknesses Sergeant Ingle exploited." "So they're learning from their mistakes," Wolfe commented. "They are," Park agreed, "but they're still operating under the assumption that their basic design philosophy is sound." "Dr. Sharma, can you explain?" The xenobiologist stood, adjusting her glasses. "Vraxian culture is highly hierarchical and resistant to fundamental change. Their weapons designs have remained essentially the same for centuries, with only incremental improvements. The idea that their basic approach might be flawed is culturally unacceptable to them." "Which gives us an opening," Sam said. "Exactly," Park nodded. "We'll infiltrate the facility, gather intelligence on the new prototypes, and if possible, demonstrate that even their improved designs can be overcome by human ingenuity." The team spent the next 2 days preparing, studying the layout of the facility and practicing close-quarters combat techniques designed to exploit Vraxian weapon weaknesses. Sam worked closely with Dr. Sharma to understand the physiological limitations of Vraxian soldiers. "Their exoskeletons make them strong," she explained during one session, "but they have limited flexibility in certain joint configurations. If you can force their limbs into these positions, they're surprisingly vulnerable." Sam practiced the moves she demonstrated, learning to use a Vraxian's strength and size against it. On the day of the mission, they boarded a stealth shuttle designed to evade Vraxian detection systems. The journey to the moon would take 6 hours, giving them time for a final review of the plan. "Remember," Captain Park told them as they prepared their equipment, "this is primarily an intelligence-gathering operation. Engage only when necessary and focus on documenting the new weapon designs." Sam checked his combat suit, which had been reinforced with additional armor over his previously injured areas. His pulse rifle was fully charged, and he carried a sidearm and combat knife as backup. "Nervous?" Gray asked him, adjusting his sniper scope. "A little," Sam admitted. "Last time I encountered Vraxians on their territory, I barely made it out alive. This time you've got us," Gray said with a confident grin. "Plus, you know how to break their toys now." The shuttle approached the moon under electronic camouflage, setting down in a crater 2 kilometers from the research facility. They would approach on foot to minimize the chance of detection. The moon's surface was rocky and barren, with lower gravity than Earth but higher than Vraxia 9. They moved quickly but cautiously, using natural formations for cover. "Security looks lighter than expected," Wolfe commented as they reached a ridge overlooking the facility. "I count only 2 perimeter guards at the main entrance." Gray studied the complex through his scope. "There's a secondary entrance on the east side with minimal security. Looks like a maintenance access point." "That's our way in," Park decided. "Gray, you stay here and provide overwatch. The rest of us will infiltrate through the east entrance." Standard communications protocol check in every 10 minutes. They descended the ridge, keeping low. The facility was a dome-like structure with several smaller buildings attached, all made of the same reflective material as Vraxian armor. The maintenance entrance was a small hatch built into the side of one of the auxiliary structures. Wolf examined the locking mechanism. Simple enough, he murmured, attaching a decryption device to the control panel. After a few seconds, the hatch slid open with a soft hiss. "We're in," Park reported over the comm. "Gray status, all clear from here, Captain, no movement detected." They entered a narrow corridor lit by the same bioluminescent technology the Vraxians used in their eyes. The light cast an eerie green glow over everything. "Life signs?" Park asked Dr. Sharma, who was monitoring a handheld scanner. "Minimal. I'm detecting approximately 12 Vraxians in the main laboratory area and a few more scattered throughout the facility." They moved carefully through the corridor, following Sharma's directions toward the main lab. Sam felt a familiar tension building in his muscles, the same readiness that had saved his life during his previous encounter. The corridor opened into a larger hallway with several doors. Sharma pointed to one marked with Vraxian symbols. "That's the main laboratory, according to the facility schematics." Park nodded to Wolf, who attached his decryption device to the door panel. This time, it took longer, nearly a minute, before the door unlocked. "Ready?" Park asked, drawing her weapon. The others nodded, positioning themselves for entry. Park pushed the door open and they moved inside in practiced formation. The laboratory was larger than expected, with various workstations and testing areas. Several Vraxian scientists turned in surprise at their entrance. "Nobody move." Park commanded, her translation device converting her words to Vraxian. For a moment, it seemed like the scientists would comply. Then one of them lunged for an alarm panel on the wall. Wolf fired a precision shot that destroyed the panel before the Vraxian could reach it. "That was your only warning," Park said. "Cooperate and no one gets hurt." The Vraxians looked at each other, their bioluminescent eyes pulsing with what Sam recognized as anxiety. Finally, one stepped forward, older than the others, with faded markings on its exoskeleton. "What do you want, humans?" it asked through its own translator. "Information," Park replied. "You're developing new weapons here. We want to know about them." The lead scientist's mandibles quivered in what might have been indignation. "This is a violation of the Proxima Treaty, which your military violated first when they attacked our research stations in the Epsilon sector," Park countered. "Now show us the weapons." Reluctantly, the scientist led them to a secured area at the back of the laboratory. Inside were several workbenches with partially assembled weapons. "These are the next generation of Vraxian infantry weapons," the scientist explained. "More powerful, more accurate," and it hesitated. "And what?" Sam prompted. "And structurally reinforced to prevent the kind of failure that occurred during a recent encounter with human forces," the scientist finished, its eyes fixed on Sam's hands. Sam stepped forward to examine one of the weapons. It resembled the shatter rifle he had broken, but with visible modifications. The connection between barrel and firing chamber was reinforced with additional material, and the overall design was more compact. "May I?" he asked, reaching for the weapon. The scientist made a gesture that Sam interpreted as reluctance, but it nodded. "It is not yet fully functional. The power core is not installed." Sam lifted the weapon, testing its weight and balance. It was heavier than the previous model, the reinforced sections adding significant mass. He examined the joint between barrel and firing chamber carefully. "They've added a secondary support structure," Wolf observed, looking over Sam's shoulder, "and changed the alloy composition by the look of it." "Can you still break it?" Park asked quietly. Sam applied experimental pressure to different points on the weapon. The reinforcement had eliminated the obvious weak point, but the added weight had created new stress points in the weapon's frame. "Different approach needed," he murmured, then looked up at the lead scientist. "You designed these improvements." The Vraxian's eyes pulsed with what Sam now recognized as pride. "I did, after analyzing the failure that occurred during the encounter on Vraxia 9. Sam nodded, then in one swift motion, twisted the weapon along a different axis than before. There was a moment of resistance, then a crack as the reinforced weapon broke along a new stress line. The Vraxian scientists chittered in alarm, their translator devices overlapping as they all spoke at once. "Impossible. The reinforcements should have prevented." How did it know where the lead scientist stared at the broken weapon in Sam's hands, its bioluminescent eyes dimming in what might have been shock or dismay? You reinforced the original weak point, Sam explained, holding up the broken pieces, but added weight created new stress points in the frame. Basic materials engineering. We need to document all of this, Park said, motioning to Wolf. Get everything you can on these designs. While Wolf began scanning and photographing the prototype weapons, Dr. Sharma approached the lead scientist. Your species believes that human anatomy is inferior to Vraxian physiology, she said. This belief has influenced your weapon's design, hasn't it? The scientist's mandibles clicked rapidly. Vraxian manipulator limbs are stronger and more durable than human hands. Our weapons are designed accordingly. Strength isn't everything, Sharma replied. Human hands have greater dexterity and fine motor control. We can apply force in ways your physiology doesn't allow for. Gray to team, the sniper's voice came over the comm. We have a situation, Vraxian transport approaching from the north. Ida 3 minutes. Time to go, Park announced. Wolf, do you have what we need? Got it all, Captain. Park turned to the lead scientist. We're leaving now. No one will be harmed if you don't try to stop us. The scientist's eyes pulsed rapidly. You have destroyed years of research. The military will not be pleased. Maybe they'll learn something from it, Sam suggested, setting down the broken weapon. Like not underestimating humans. They left the laboratory the way they had come, moving quickly through the corridors toward the maintenance exit. Gray continued to update them on the approaching transport. They're landing now. Looks like a full security team disembarking at least 8 armed Vraxians. Can we avoid them? Park asked. Negative, they're heading directly for your exit point. Park made a quick decision. Alternate route, Sharma options, the xenobiologist consulted her scanner. There's a service tunnel that leads to the north side of the facility. It might be tight, but we can make it. They changed direction, following Sharma's guidance. The service tunnel was indeed tight designed for maintenance drones rather than humanoid beings. Gray, new exit point, Park reported, sending the coordinates. Can you cover us? Affirmative. I've got a clear line of sight. They reached the end of the service tunnel, emerging onto the surface of the moon near a cluster of environmental control equipment. The Vraxian transport was visible in the distance, with armed soldiers spreading out to search the facility. Move to extraction point 2, Park ordered. Stay low and use the terrain for cover. They began making their way across the lunar surface, using craters and rock formations to hide their movement. They were halfway to their shuttle when Gray's urgent voice came over the comm. Contact. They've spotted you. 3 Vraxians approaching from your 6 o'clock, moving fast. Sam looked back to see 3 Vraxian soldiers advancing rapidly, their longer limbs allowing them to cover ground quickly despite the lunar gravity. Each carried one of the older model shatter rifles. Keep moving, Park ordered. Gray, can you slow them down? Working on it. A moment later, one of the pursuing Vraxians stumbled and fell as Gray's shot struck its leg. The other 2 kept coming. They'll catch us before we reach the shuttle, Wolf said, checking over his shoulder. Park made another quick decision. Ingle, Wolf, delay them. Sharma and I will continue to the shuttle and prepare for immediate departure. Sam and Wolf took cover behind a large boulder, readying their weapons as Park and Sharma continued toward extraction point 2. Just like training, Wolf said with a grim smile. Except with real aliens trying to kill us. The Vraxians approached cautiously, using the lunar terrain for cover just as the humans had. Gray's voice came over the comm again. I can't get a clean shot from this angle. You're on your own for now. Sam checked his pulse rifle's charge still at maximum. Remember the weak spots we identified, he told Wolf. Aim for joint articulations in their armor. One of the Vraxians broke cover, firing its shatter rifle. Crystal shards impacted the boulder they were hiding behind, sending fragments flying. Wolf leaned out briefly and returned fire, forcing the alien back into cover. They're trying to flank us, he warned. Sam saw the second Vraxian moving to their left, trying to get a clear angle. He fired a burst from his pulse rifle, striking the alien's armor but not penetrating it. The Vraxians were now communicating to each other in their clicking language, coordinating their approach. Sam knew they couldn't hold this position much longer. "We need to move," he said to Wolf. "On my mark, we'll fall back to that crater." He indicated a depression about 20 meters behind them. "Ready when you are." 3, 2, 1, mark. They broke cover simultaneously, running in a low crouch toward the crater. The Vraxians immediately opened fire, crystal shards whistling past them. Sam felt a sharp pain as one grazed his arm, cutting through his combat suit. They reached the crater and dropped down into it, breathing hard. Sam checked his arm. The shard had only grazed him, leaving a shallow cut. "Park to Ingle and Wolf. We've reached the shuttle and are powering up systems. Ida to your position for pickup, 2 minutes. "Copy that," Sam replied. "We'll try to hold them here." The Vraxians were advancing more boldly now, likely sensing that their prey was cornered. One appeared at the edge of the crater, its shatter rifle aimed directly at them. Wolf fired first, his shot hitting the alien's weapon. The Vraxian stumbled back but didn't drop the rifle. Sam aimed carefully and fired at the same spot Wolf had hit. This time, the weapon broke apart in the alien's hands. The Vraxian made a sound that the translation device interpreted as a curse, then retreated from the crater's edge. "They're going to try something else," Wolf warned. "Stay alert." A moment later, something landed in the crater between them, a Vraxian shock grenade. Sam reacted instantly, grabbing the device and hurling it back out of the crater. It detonated in midair, the concussive force washing over them but without its full effect. "That was close," Wolf gasped. The sound of the shuttle's engines became audible, growing louder as it approached their position. 30 seconds to your position," Park reported. "Be ready to move." Sam peered over the edge of the crater. The Vraxians were retreating, likely to regroup and approach with more caution. It gave them the opening they needed. "Now," Sam said, and they scrambled out of the crater just as the shuttle appeared overhead, hovering a few meters above the lunar surface. The loading ramp descended. Gray provided covering fire from his position as Sam and Wolf sprinted for the shuttle. The Vraxians returned fire, crystal shards pinging off the shuttle's armor. They reached the ramp and jumped aboard, Gray joining them moments later after making his own run from his sniper position. The shuttle's engines roared as Park piloted them away from the moon's surface. "Everyone accounted for," Park called from the cockpit. "All present," Sharma confirmed, running a medical scanner over Sam's arm. "Minor laceration, nothing serious." As the shuttle accelerated away from the moon, Sam looked out a viewport at the Vraxian facility growing smaller in the distance. Their mission had been successful. They had gathered valuable intelligence and demonstrated once again that human adaptability could overcome Vraxian technology. "Do you think they'll learn from this?" Wolf asked, securing his equipment. "Maybe," Sam replied, thinking about the shock in the lead scientist's eyes when he broke the reinforced weapon. "But it might take more than one lesson for them to understand that looking down on humans is a mistake." Back aboard the Intrepid, Colonel Ryan was pleased with their results. "The intelligence you gathered will be invaluable," he told the team during their debriefing. "Especially the demonstration that even their reinforced designs can be overcome with the right application of force." "It's not just about breaking their weapons, sir," Sam added. "It's about understanding that different evolutionary paths lead to different strengths and weaknesses. The Vraxians think their physiology makes them superior, but it also blinds them to alternatives." Ryan nodded thoughtfully. "A psychological advantage we can exploit." He looked at each member of the team. "I'm authorizing continued operations for your unit. We need to press this advantage while we have it." Over the next 3 months, Sam's team conducted several more missions into Vraxian territory, gathering intelligence and testing techniques against their technology. Each success reinforced what Sam had discovered during his first encounter, that Vraxian arrogance about their physical superiority created exploitable weaknesses in their approach to warfare. Word of their successes spread throughout human forces. Training programs were established to teach other soldiers the techniques Sam's team had developed. Morale improved as troops realized they weren't at such a disadvantage against the physically imposing aliens. The Vraxians, for their part, began to adapt but slowly, hampered by their hierarchical culture and resistance to fundamental change. They reinforced their weapons, modified their tactics, but always within the framework of their existing approach. 6 months after Sam's initial encounter with the Vraxian patrol, human forces had pushed the aliens back from several contested systems. The war wasn't over, but the balance had shifted. During this time, Sam had continued to study Vraxian culture and physiology with Dr. Sharma's help. He came to understand that their mockery of human hands hadn't been mere cruelty, it had been a genuine belief that their evolved form was objectively superior. "In a way, it's understandable," Sharma told him during one of their sessions. Their entire civilization is built around the idea of physiological superiority determining social hierarchy. To accept that humans might have advantages would require a complete restructuring of their worldview. Sam reflected on this as he prepared for what might be their most important mission, yet a demonstration for Vraxian military leaders who had, surprisingly, requested a meeting to discuss the possibility of a ceasefire. The meeting was to take place on a neutral space station in the Proxima system, under the supervision of representatives from 3 non-aligned alien species. Security would be tight, with both human and Vraxian forces limited to small honor guards. "They're probably trying to gather intelligence on our techniques," Park suggested during the mission briefing, "but it's also possible they genuinely want to end the conflict. Either way, this is an opportunity," Ryan told them. "If we can convince their leadership that continued fighting is pointless, we might be able to negotiate a favorable peace." Sam would be part of the human delegation, along with Admiral Helena Chen, the commander of human forces in the sector. His role would be to demonstrate directly to Vraxian leadership why their technological approach needed fundamental reconsideration. The space station was an impressive structure, a spinning wheel providing artificial gravity, with transparent sections offering views of the Proxima star. The meeting room was in a secure section at the hub, where gravity was lower. Sam waited with Admiral Chen and the rest of the human delegation as the Vraxian representatives entered. There were 5 of them, 4 military officers, identifiable by their elaborate armor, and 1 civilian wearing the markings of a high-ranking scientist. Sam recognized the civilian immediately. It was the lead scientist from the research facility they had raided months ago. Their eyes met across the room, the Vraxians' bioluminescence pulsing with recognition. Admiral Chen stepped forward. "On behalf of the United Earth government, I welcome this opportunity for dialogue." The ranking Vraxian officer responded, its translator converting the clicks and whirs into smooth, synthesized human speech. "The Vraxian hegemony acknowledges your greeting. We have agreed to this meeting to discuss terms for cessation of hostilities." The formal greetings continued for several minutes, with both sides carefully observing diplomatic protocols. Then they got down to business. "Our military analysts have noted a concerning trend in recent engagements," the Vraxian commander said. "Human forces have developed techniques that exploit perceived weaknesses in our equipment." "Not perceived weaknesses," Sam said before he could stop himself. "Actual design flaws resulting from assumptions about physiological superiority." The Vraxian officer's eyes pulsed with what might have been anger, but the lead scientist stepped forward. "Sergeant Ingle speaks with the directness of a soldier, but there is truth in his words," it said. "Our research indicates that we have indeed made errors in our assumptions about human capabilities." This admission seemed to surprise even the Vraxian officers. The lead commander's mandibles clicked rapidly in what Sam now recognized as agitation. "Explain," it demanded. The scientist gestured to Sam. "Perhaps a demonstration would be more effective than words." Admiral Chen nodded her approval, and Sam stepped forward. One of the Vraxian officers placed an unloaded shatter rifle on the table between them. "This is our current standard-issue infantry weapon," the scientist explained. "It incorporates all the reinforcements developed in response to earlier incidents." Sam picked up the weapon, feeling its weight and balance. It was even more heavily reinforced than the prototype he had broken on the moon. He examined it carefully, identifying stress points and structural weaknesses. Then, with a nod to the Vraxian scientist, he applied pressure to a specific point where the reinforcement created a new stress line. The weapon resisted briefly, then broke with a sharp crack. The Vraxian officers chittered in alarm, their translator devices overlapping. Impossible, how could? The reinforcements should have. The lead scientist raised a hand, silencing them. This is the third design iteration our engineers have developed. Each previous version was similarly overcome in field testing against human forces. The lead Vraxian commander stared at the broken weapon, then at Sam's hands. Your species lacks our strength and durability. How is this possible? Different evolutionary paths, Sam explained, setting down the broken pieces. Human hands evolved for fine manipulation and tool use. We can apply force in ways your physiology doesn't allow. It's not about being better or worse, just different. The Vraxian officers conferred among themselves, their untranslated language filling the room with clicks and whirs. Finally, the lead commander turned back to Admiral Chen. We have underestimated your species, it acknowledged. Our cultural assumption of physiological superiority has blinded us to the advantages of different evolutionary adaptations. Admiral Chen nodded. Understanding and respecting our differences is the first step toward peaceful coexistence. We are prepared to discuss terms for a ceasefire, the Vraxian commander said, and to establish joint research initiatives to better understand the comparative advantages of our different physiologies. As the formal negotiations began, Sam found himself standing near the Vraxian scientist. You knew I would be able to break the weapon, he said quietly. The scientist's eyes pulsed with what might have been amusement. I had calculated a 93% probability based on previous encounters. Sometimes our leadership requires direct evidence before accepting new perspectives. They mocked my hands, Sam said, remembering his first encounter with the Vraxian patrol. Called them pathetic and inefficient. An error born of ignorance, the scientist replied, one that has cost us dearly in this conflict. The ceasefire was signed 3 days later, ending hostilities between humans and Vraxians. Joint research initiatives were established and cultural exchange programs began, aiming to foster better understanding between the species. Sam remained with the Special Operations Team, now reassigned to support the cultural exchange efforts. He worked closely with Vraxian scientists to develop training programs that would help both species understand each other's strengths and limitations. 1 year after his original encounter with the Vraxian patrol, Sam stood in a laboratory on the space station, watching a human engineer and a Vraxian technician collaborating on a new tool design that incorporated elements from both species' approaches. Remarkable how quickly things change, Doctor. Sharma commented, joining him. From mortal enemies to research partners in just 1 year. Sam flexed his hands, remembering the feel of the Vraxian weapon breaking between them. Sometimes all it takes is one moment to change everything, one demonstration that challenges someone's entire worldview. And one pair of pathetic graspers that weren't so pathetic after all, Sharma added with a smile. Sam smiled back. The war was over, at least for now. Humans and Vraxians were learning to work together, each bringing their unique evolutionary advantages to the table. There would be challenges ahead, cultural misunderstandings to overcome, but the foundation had been laid for something that had once seemed impossible: peace between their species. And it had all started with a moment of desperation, when alien soldiers had mocked his hands, and a human had snapped their weapon in two.